Lazy League, I did not think I'd have the time. This is my week off. Jackie is in town. We're flying out tomorrow. Her parents are involved. Didn't think I'd have it on the go. But it turns out I had a small window in an afternoon. So I'm going to try and record it. Don't think I'll edit it till maybe tomorrow or the day after. But this is going to come a lot faster than I thought. This is the aforementioned January review, only shortly after I did my December, but that means I'm catching up, which, if you know the month we're heading into here, I need to be caught up in February because we know what's on its way when we start skipping to that calendar month of March. So here is the most up-to-date. We'll get the points involved to give you a little bit because it turns out there were some trades to talk about. We'll actually do a bit of a team wrap-up, but I'll still get you out of here in a decent amount of time. I hope. I normally do this at the end, or at least I did last year. I kind of like it at the beginning. Let's get the thoughts out, then we can do teams, then we can do our kind of results. Maybe that's just the better way this should go. I don't know. We'll try it out. Either way, I've waited a couple days, and so now a few things have definitely happened. I think if we look at the trade deadline in general, it gives us actually a lot to talk about, even without the number one story. I think the Spurs made some interesting moves. I think the Warriors move they did and the one they didn't make holds a lot of weight for those who aren't really aware. I think it's relatively easy or well reported now. Durant was supposed to go back to the Warriors, but he said no. You have to assume a number of reasons why, his relationship with Draymond potentially. I actually think there's a good sub-story about him still being upset about how he was treated when he was hurt and how that led to him coming back early when they openly questioned him, and then he just popped that Achilles and maybe he wasn't supposed to come back after all, and did impact his career. I think there's a lot of bitter blood there, even though basketball-wise, I think it gave him the best chance at a title, gives them the best chance at coming back for a title. All of those kind of narratives are important. I think later on, too, when we talk about the teams that are playing for the bottom as opposed to the top, they became a little bit more apparent at the trade deadline. All of that was enough to be a good kind of narrative for the NBA. But let's be honest, the number one story is not just the number one story of now. It's the number one that I can remember in a while. The Super Bowl media was clamoring for this because that 2-week media cycle was boring. We've seen this game before a couple of years ago. We know what to expect. Philly's probably better, but the Chiefs have Mahomes and Reed. And that was kind of it. I mean, I know everyone was looking for angles and edges, but that was kind of like the basic of the thesis of every statement I heard. So when all of a sudden just this raw meat was thrown on the sports reporters, plate, everyone just ate it up like crazy for a number of reasons. And I think the crazy part is now that this has come out, there's a couple more days that have gone by. Full disclosure as to when I'm recording this. Yes, Davis just got hurt, so he's out for a couple weeks. So all that's done and dusted. But I think, the fire Nico chants have already happened. And some of the sports reporters that were kind of defending this because Dallas went full out, attack Luka. It becomes a little bit obvious to me that some people don't actually follow the NBA and report it, or maybe just don't know much about NBA history. The people who are coming out to defend this and saying, well, Luka was this heavy, I mean, that's kind of what they've been saying about Luka since the last couple of years, that he isn't really taking care of himself. But let's be honest, he's 25. I want us all to think back. No, Rennie, Horst, you didn't know me at 25. You know me shortly thereafter. Jainer, Shea, we knew each other at 25. Was that our best version of ourselves? Were we making the most mature, long-term decisions at the age of 25 and below? I can go ahead and say maybe Luka has some growing up to do, but maybe that's not a Luka thing. That's a 25 sudden millionaire thing, right? And someone who's had the limelight for a while. And let's also be honest, he's been overweight for the last few years, and he averages nearly 30 points a game. And some seasons more than that. He led his team to the NBA Finals last year, weighing approximately what he currently weighs. So I would go ahead and say that maybe you didn't really have a handle on him the whole time, but then to go out and start comparing him to all these former players, and you include Shaq as one of them? I mean, we all watched at that point. We know what they used to say. Like, he notoriously played himself into weight because he showed up way overweight. That was one of the things that actually caused some of the tension, let's be honest, not the main reason between Kobe and Shaq. There was some other alpha male stuff going on. But that was always a complaint that he would show up and it's like, you're not taking yourself seriously. I'm ready to blah, blah, blah. Even the aforementioned Kobe, we talk about what he turned into. And Shay, I'm treading lightly. I understand you're a huge fan, but I think you can even admit this. He was a young kid when he entered the league. He had a number of growing pains he went through. Now we remember the finished product as someone that we saw on the Redeem team, someone who had that second run with Pau Gasol and championships and all that. But there was some sketchiness in between, and he had growing up to do because that's what you do. You mature. You don't shoot out a 40-year-old and then suddenly you have all this wisdom in your 20s. That's just not how the game plays or how any game has ever been played. It blows my mind that we forget this, and yet we're going to say that that's the reason. So to everybody else in the league that is not a Lakers fan, so Shay, you can just keep rolling around in this one. It's kind of an F you to Nico on this because now you just gave. I mean, if you read a lot of like, who would you start your franchise with? I'd say right now the consensus number one would probably be Wemby. But I would say Luka's probably number two. Now, there's some other people that some people would have on that list, and we have most of them picked in our league. But Luka is definitely on a lot of people's. I would make my whole franchise around this person. Just give me the chance. And that's the thing, Dallas. You didn't give anyone else the chance. And you didn't consult. I don't believe that you didn't tell Kidd or LeBron didn't know. That's BS. I'm sorry you tell those players. But other GMs are saying they didn't know. They just didn't know they could throw their hat in the ring and try and make you an offer. If you look at what all the number ones, all the people who've gone for recently that are half of what Luka is and all the number ones they got, there is no chance this is the best deal you could have gotten. And what did you do? You took a player who has shown a ruthless aggression towards other people when motivated, has had 2 playoff runs. Granted, one was bubble-based. Last year was not bubble-based. He certainly represented the West, and it's not like, he did have people step up, but it was a very Luka product. You've given him a reason to recommit, and you've put him next to the greatest, I'm not going to say greatest player of all time, because that's another discussion, and most of you know how I feel about that. But he's pretty much like the greatest personal trainer of all time in LeBron. You can say what you want about his ability or his legacy. He takes care of himself, and that is not a dispute. That is a fact. And if you look at his regime, what he eats, how he trains, how he recovers to train more, it is unprecedented. And now you put him as besties with Luka for a couple seasons. Thanks, Nico. Some team tiers first, and I've kind of put it all on the line. If you remember the last time I did this at the beginning of the year, it was more the prep episode, and I had like 6 more divisions. I put a bunch in the same because I kind of think more are. I did have the 4 poopers for Coopers. I don't know if they all really want to be here, and there's a little controversy. I think you could probably assume a few in my one above actually should be down here, but to kind of explain the difference, the ones I had in the second tier, they're mostly Eastern, one Western. The one we'd rather not be here. I actually think the Raptors in Portland kind of want to tank. And I think if you look at the moves that they made, the Raptors definitely showed that. I think Brooklyn deep down wants to tank. It's just they haven't really been able to. And I don't really know what the hell the 76ers and the Bulls think that they're doing. But the crazy part is right now, the Bulls are the 10. And that's kind of more what I was talking about here is like they're trying to, but I don't think that they can in the East fully tank. So I fully appreciate how you might think these bottom 2 are a weird combo. You'd think, right? I'd put a lot of West teams in where I'm just like, if you just looked at each of them on their own, not win the NBA standings, you'd be like, well, they're going to make the playoffs, right? Like they'll make the top 10. It's just when you start doing the math of who's in the top 10 that you realize some of these teams might finish 6th, or one of these teams will probably finish 6th in the West. One will finish 12th. And that's the crazy part, is trying to figure out how this is going to go. Now, I think we could probably say with some level of safety after the trades, the Kings and the Mavericks would be the ones you would assume would dip down, especially after the injury the Mavs are facing. But they're still competitive, and they're in that weird spot. The Clippers are the one who currently, as I'm recording this, are number 6. So not only would they make the playoffs, they'd make it by a lot. And I actually think you could make the argument that they are a legit contender. I just don't really know what the hell they are yet, and I'll probably know a little more next month. Golden State, Phoenix, Minnesota, San Antonio, I would have thought, yeah, they'll probably be in the hunt. Maybe Golden State a bit too old. Phoenix, I thought at the beginning of the year would come out. Minnesota, I thought they were guaranteed to be in. I thought the Spurs might be that team just to make it. But the thing is, 3 or 4 of these teams aren't going to make it. And that's the crazy part is the West is just that competitive that these trades, give it a couple more weeks. The ones who made the deals and didn't make the deals, it's going to have a significant impact. On the Eastern Specials front, see, there's a team that actually randomly are super fun to watch in the East. Now, some of these teams, just given the fact that you can do the math and count, some of these are going to make the top exception because if you got 1, you got 2, you got 3, you got 4, you got 5, that means, again, I did the same thing. One of these teams will finish legit in the playoffs and not have to play to get in. Who that ends up being, though, your guess is as good as mine because honestly, it depends on the week. It depends on the who's healthy. I mean, the Magic now are starting to get healthy again. That might help them out, but they still can't really score. Atlanta can score. It's stopping people. That's the problem. Miami just got rid of somebody, and in full Miami fashion, now they're all of a sudden having a few guys going off. Detroit's maturing faster than you think. So for them, I don't think I wanted to put these as actually legit contenders, but they're just super fun to watch, and they're going to make the playoffs. The post-trade deadline legit. I shoved everyone here that is not, I would say right now, someone that I would think is going to win it all. But each of these teams have a reason to be that team that makes the conference finals and maybe makes that finals, depending on what a lot of things happen. When I say depending, looking at Memphis, apparently John Morant only plays part-time, and Memphis could be the team here to fall away. But when they're playing well, they have a great defensive defensive structure. They can pretty much do what they want. The Bucks showed in the NBA Cup what they actually, when they care, what happens. Pacers, I think, still have some of the holes, but they just keep chugging along. Denver, I think we know the reason why I would. A triple-double contender, and by what I mean by that is he's actually averaging a triple-double right now in Jokic, so you know what goes on there. Lakers, I think it all depends on how they can put these people together. Again, do I think that they're a contender? No, but do I think anyone in the world wants to play LeBron and Luka and the way Austin Reeves is playing? There's a lot of teams that they can't guard, and people focus a lot on that, but who can guard them? So there we go. And then the Knicks are actually coming form and actually looking at the team, like the team that they were supposed to be. And Cat has a big reason for that. I still kept our contenders the same, except I did add Cleveland because you kind of have to now. They've done it for about half a season. They're looking pretty solid. And if anything, they're really making the Celtics look like maybe not the team with that kind of fire to repeat. Because remember, it is pretty tough to come back to back and do it again. Thunder definitely look like the team in the West. But again, like I said, how the West will be won, going to be super interesting. On to our actual pool results. You can see I just updated it. So congrats, Rennie Joker, who is definitely going to be getting you some points at some point this season. Although he's currently not really leading in any statistical category, he's leering on all of them. And as I said in the last little bit, he is currently averaging a triple-double. But he did get you player of the month, as did Giannis. Giannis right now, coming out of the gates, seems to be the player that you probably wanted to have on your team, with SGA being the other one. But we'll see how that translates into points. As of right now, SGA is the leader in points, whereas I have Sabonis, who has the rebound leader. Young, who we can jump over. That was a big pickup here by Horst, is the assist leader. Dyson Daniels, who nobody has, is the steals leader. And we stick with Wemby as not only the defensive player of the year, current odds-on favorite, but also the blocks leader by more than a block and a half. So there's that. And if you actually look at each of the statistical categories of the current leadership, most are there's no neck and neck race right now, but that changes significantly. And obviously, as we know, it's one injury away from something else going down. Rookie of the year is definitely one that seems to change week by week. Currently the favorite, and you can go to NBA.com for this, they do it every month. The sixth person, nobody I believe has. He's our half-court shot specialist. Rennie knows what I'm talking about. SGA is also the favorite for clutch right now, whereas most improved is, again, Dyson Daniels, who I assumed is someone who's going to come up at the midseason. And if you remember, this is my flawless and seamless transition over to team points because there's no real team point update and I just did the team element. But do remember this year we did add points for coach of the year. I believe it's 2. Yep, 2 points. That's why I put that on the thing so everyone knows what's going on. Right now, according to NBA.com, it is the Orlando Magic's coach that currently is leading that one. But I can tell you from experience, that shifts a lot as the second half goes on. It really becomes a narrative-based award. So we go to the overall points. We only had 2 updates. Rennie cashed in on one. We had Shea cash in on the other. So Shea was already our league leader. Rennie just popped ahead and became tied for second, but only by 1. So really, as I said last month, right now, Shea is going to walk in the leader likely because the biggest shakedown of points has already happened until we get to, obviously there's the month by month, but until we get to award season and as the playoffs hit, that's when the points really start to add up. So Shea is going to be our leader going into the year end, and then we'll just see how that shakes down. Unless in future years, just throwing it out there, do we want to consider making an all-star game as an appearance get you an extra point? We do not have that, and we're not putting that in this year because that would be unfair. But as you know, I always like to talk about things, so think about it. It could be something we implement for next year. With this coming out mid-February, and then I think we've got, the February review that'll come out at the beginning of March, and then that one will take us to madness. Only got a few of these left, and I know we got the pickup, the All-Star break is upcoming, so I'll be in touch on the WhatsApp group about that. But do start to think, because like I said in some of the player bits, we do have some players that are eligible right now for some points that are currently off some lists. So I think that's going to be entertaining. Either way, I hope you really did enjoy the trade deadline, and hopefully it made you go back and revisit this pool to take a look. Who do I actually have, and how might this impact me? Because that was a huge shift. So there's almost going to be definitely 2 seasons, the pre-Luka trade, post-Luka trade. So now we're in our post-Luka trade world. What is that going to mean for points? Pretty excited to find out myself. Best of luck till next time, crew.